There's a lot going on scrolling TikTok lately, especially being part of the recovery community, talking
Yeah.
about Graceland Ranch.
Yep.
Now, for those of you that don't know what Graceland Ranch is, that is established by Patrick Ridge, who he has a big online presence here on TikTok. And he's a little controversial because a lot of people don't like the fact that his house is filmed. So it's putting people's like anonymity, some of their privacy
Hmm.
out there. There's been some kickback as well as his own mental health and his own mental health struggles lately. Sometimes recovery content creators or just content creators in general, especially when you're streaming like that, you're up for hours and hours and days and hours sometimes streaming.
Okay, so first off, let's break this down a little bit. One, there's been a lot of controversy going on, basically about whether or not he relapsed.
Right.
That's to say he was ever sober in the first place. Who knows? I mean, he could have kept on using, and who knows what's going on. But you got to understand whenever you're doing this stuff, and like Marie just said, you are going for so long streaming, and there's so much stress, and you're trying to hold this treatment place together and everything. I can understand the stress getting to you. So some people are like, oh, he's acting weird and he's manic and all this stuff. It could literally just be stress and the fact that he hasn't slept and all this stuff. But at the same time, it's something you have to be very aware of your mental health whenever you're doing this, because you have to constantly go, you have to constantly put out content, otherwise nothing's going to happen. You're going to stop growing and you're just going to fizzle off. So that constant stress and grind that you have to do is a different beast that not everybody understands. I think one of the struggles that he has, he wants his people, like the people that are there, freshly in recovery. These are people that have barely even been, clear of everything. And he wants these people to produce content for him. He wants them to do things and give the people their show. And it's like you're going through it, you've been off everything for like 3 days. You can't expect those people to do that. On top of that, their privacy and everything is affected. I mean, these people supposedly have to sign a waiver saying that they can be filmed and everything. There has
But
to be
where does that waiver have like a little fine line? And that's why I want to get
right.
into this next topic. So I came across one of Brandy Mac's videos that was pretty popular on the subject. And she was basically talking about the fact that, you know, him having this online presence and these things, you know, it's like people's mental health does get affected along the way
Mhm.
sometimes. And it's hard to see whether that's mania, people playing it up for the camera. But
Mhm.
she brought up a very valid point. When you're making people sign these waivers, there was somebody that passed away that was part of his sober living home.
Mhm.
And the mother asked for him to be a pallbearer at her son's funeral. What the mother didn't know is I guess he apparently filmed all the behind the scenes of being the pallbearer.
Yep.
And it's like, at what point is that crossing a line? Because that mother didn't sign that consent. She didn't sign consent. Her son signed consent, and he's now deceased.
In my opinion, I mean the thing saying that, hey, you can film me, that pertains to while you're in the group home, while you're all in sober living and everything like that. That does not pass on to whenever you leave. That does not pass on to like even your private bedroom and stuff like that. I feel like that's your space. It should be common areas. So the fact that like this happened, this person passed away, horrible thing, and the first thing he thinks is whenever he was told he could join is, oh, I have content, oh, I have something that I can capitalize off of and get more views. And that's not what it's about. That shows how much he kind of actually cares about everybody. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't give a shit about this kid's life. All he thinks about is, oh, that's more views coming in.
I've also seen some videos of people that are just getting there to the ranch and they're just like unpacking their things. And here he is, like, go grab me a water, go do this. Like,
And somebody said that the way they are there, it's very militaristic.
right.
It's like a boot camp and a lot of structure and stuff like that, which that's not a bad thing. I will say I think that can be very good for people in that situation because they haven't had that structure, and that's kind of why they've fallen down this path. So that, I kind of agree with. But at the same time, I don't know if people just don't know what they're getting themselves into, or maybe we're judging. And I mean, these people do know what they're going into, and it's not a big deal. That's what they want because they
I
have this.
know that it's got to be a lot, just generally being someone in recovery to run a house like that. So I know that that's got to be a lot of people to keep in order, a lot of red tape, a lot of making sure that, you don't get involved in a situation. But sometimes bad, say the word, publicity
Publicity.
is not a bad thing. Like, sometimes that's what gets people tuning in because
Yeah.
they want to tune in. A lot of people love tuning in for drama.
Oh yeah.
Drama, people crying, people upset. Those things are what brings people traction to their pages and helps them grow. So, I don't know.
And I'm not going to say any names, but you notice a lot of the bigger creators, every damn video they make is, oh, I'm crying about something or I'm getting in a fight, arguing with my spouse, whatever. It's like, and people applaud it for days. And it's just like, this is someone's, like, for some of them, it's real life. For others, it's just like it's all fake, and but people praise it like crazy, and
Right.
people praise them.
Because a lot of times people aren't realizing you're seeing 2 or 3 minutes of someone's day. That is it. That is
It's
it. I can
curated.
make my day look shitty. I can make my day look good. I can make it look a certain way because I'm only going to show you what I choose to share.
That's something that whenever I started doing my thing, I shared my day for the most part, but then I also started doing vlogs and like little skits and all types of stuff. And I was showing all of it. Like I was giving as much of my day as possible because I was trying to show people what I was actually going through. And you can tell whenever it's the real and what's happening and what's actual day to day and what is purely curated content so that you'll watch. Because people don't actually cry in every freaking video. Like it's just not like that. People are not constantly fighting. It's all entertainment, and it's sad that that's become the entertainment. Does that make sense? Like it's sad
Right.
that people have to make it all about you're depressed 24/7, and that's what everybody's tuning in for. Like don't people feed off of that and become depressed or angry or whatever too?
I feel like if you surround yourself with positivity, you feel more positive. I know I do.
Right.
And when I surround myself with nothing but negativity, I sure as hell feel more negative. And
Crazy.
that's the thing. Like, when you're following people that have an online presence, no matter how big or small their platform is, you have to remember that they're editing these videos, they're putting them
Mhm.
out there. They want you to see these things. Now, getting into our next topic, which was the topic of Nurse Hannah. I
Mhm.
know that there's a lot of controversy when it surrounds her. Now, months back when the 17 diapers trend came out, I didn't even know what it was.
Mhm.
I kept seeing these women posting these videos like my 17 diapers moment was A, B, C, and D. Now, I've had a million 17 diapers moments because I'm not a perfect parent. I'm not a perfect person.
Sure.
I've been through postpartum depression. I've been through addiction. I've been through losing my children not once, but twice. So I've had a lot of those moments. But it's weird how some of these moments become trending on TikTok. And it went from this woman's, moment where she was being vulnerable, sharing about the amount of dirty diapers that piled up in her house from being
Sure.
postpartum with her second baby. But it's crazy also the backlash and the people that start looking at these videos and start going through these videos like a fine tooth comb and looking at the background and zooming in and out.
Whenever you went through postpartum depression, what did you feel? What did you go through?
So for me, it was instant. It was like this instant feeling right after I gave birth. I didn't experience it with my son, but my second pregnancy, it was like the second that C-section was done, I didn't even want to see my baby. I didn't want to see my baby. I felt like I was already mentally through so much at that point that I just wanted to remove myself from the situation. It was like so traumatic for me that it took me till like the 24 hours after giving birth till when I went to go look at that incubator because it was NIC unit. It was like the amount of mental, like I wasn't expecting to give birth at 29 weeks, so I was extremely premature.
Right.
So I wasn't even like thinking that my pregnancy was like, it wasn't even halfway done. So it's like I was very caught off guard, and it was like this instant feeling of like, no, I don't even want to go to the NIC unit right now. I don't want to do that.
Was it postpartum depression, or was it like you were so fearful that your child wouldn't make it that you
It was a
distanced?
combination. I think it was a combination of
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
Because honestly, after I then when I finally like went down to the NIC unit and all that, and it was all the wires, it was all the unknowns, it was all the I was scared. I was scared because she wasn't done cooking. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Right.
all the fears of like the oh my god, what's to come? Like is this like a death sentence to me?
So, because Shan dealt with postpartum depression after Car, um, and I don't know, it kind of came and went. So she had some of her days where she was like really upset. It wasn't like that she was trying to distance herself from Car, but she almost constantly felt like she wasn't good enough.
For postpartum, it's like one of those things. It was like an instant for me. It was this instant overall sad feeling I felt within myself. And when I started to voice those concerns to the nurse, she could just tell my behavior. My behavior was just like very like disassociating myself, like not wanting to talk to people, just not wanting to engage. I didn't want any visitors. I didn't It's just like it was instant for me. But also, that pregnancy, I was on bed rest in the hospital for quite some time before I even had the baby. So it was just depressing because I was taken away from
Mhm.
my son, and I felt like I
Mhm.
wasn't ready to have this baby right then.
Right, because it was so early.
Right. And I just was not mentally prepared. And I think that that was just some of my feelings afterwards were like, oh my God, like I was not ready for this right now. Like I still had like another almost 4.5 months that I
Well,
should have been pregnant.
and I don't think people understand how serious postpartum can get because it can get to the point where you want to unalive yourself. It can get to the point where you want to unalive your child.
Right.
It's there have been people that have just completely abandoned their families because of postpartum. I mean, it is a very, very serious thing for some people.
Right. It could
And
ruin marriages,
oh yeah,
relationships, because the woman feels like she's sitting there struggling all alone. And you know what? Fathers even get postpartum depression.
mhm,
It's a thing that's
yep.
not discussed enough at all.
Whenever it's dads, it's related to like how much the child actually like gives them affection because naturally kids whenever they're at that age it's going to be more they want mom almost always just because that's who gives them food. It's a natural chemical reaction that happens whenever a child latches on or comes out of their mom, whatever. So it's some dads can get to the point where they feel like they just aren't loved as much, and it can drive a huge wedge between mom and dad. The dad
Right.
can give up and be like, okay, this kid doesn't love me. I don't want to be here, or I'm not going to take care of him and change
Or
diapers.
just like the stress of like the financial burden.
It's weird too whenever you aren't financially stable, because it's just that first kid, and you're broke, and you're just,
Right.
what the fuck do I do? Like, how am I supposed to put food on the table? I can't afford daycare, so I can't go to work. And like, it's just, it is a crazy, crazy place to be. And there are millions upon millions of people that do it every day. Like, it's not like you won't get through it. Almost everybody can get through it. It's just, for that split second, you just have those thoughts where it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
One of the biggest things that surrounds my postpartum depression is shame. I know that the second that I started getting vocal and honest with the doctors, it was met with shame. It should have never been met with shame. And that made it worse for me because instead of being like, you know what? It's normal. You just gave birth. You just had a baby. You know, your hormones are trying to rebalance themselves back out. You know, you're you're responsible for this new life. You already had mental health struggles prior to the pregnancy. Like, I just always kept thinking, oh, it's not going to be me because I always wanted to be a mom. Well, guess what? It comes out of nowhere, and it's usually like, and for me, I know that DCF used my postpartum depression against me. And that was hard for me because when I did get my kids taken, they went back and saw my instant reporting it at the hospital and my feelings and how I felt, and I got myself on meds. But instead of that being treated with kindness and compassion and understanding, it was treated with, well, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you having these thoughts? Why are you having these feelings?
It's not something you can control. Like,
Right.
you have to work with somebody and have somebody be there, and like your partner or whoever, you have to have somebody like holding you accountable and making sure everything's okay, because you can't like just stop yourself from being depressed. It is a chemical imbalance in your brain. I
So
don't
getting
know.
back to this Hannah
Yeah.
and the 17 diapers story. So I had to look up what 17 diapers was when I was seeing these videos go around. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So she started that 17 diapers whole trend. But what people started to see, at first, she was getting a lot of shit. She was getting a lot of people like, oh my God, she's a new mother. She's leaving all those diapers laying around the house, and she was getting shamed. But then she was met with compassion, kindness, and understanding from a lot of strangers and a lot of women on the internet. But
Sure.
then that turned into more people tuning in and more people visually seeing what they thought was other things in her videos, abuse towards her children in her videos. They came out to say that because in one video, I guess the husband was bringing up something in the grocery store and goes to like, like a normal reaction would not be to flinch for a child. But for
Sure.
some reason, the child flinched, which made it almost like, why did the child flinch? So then there's people going through all these videos and they're saying, like, well, my child doesn't flinch when I go like that to their face.
Here are my arguments though, because first off, you can't really judge. Everybody has a bad day. Like, if you have 17 diapers or dirty diapers laying around wherever, no, is that the best? It's not, for sure. I completely agree with that. Uh, the problem is, like the flinching. You don't know what happened to this kid besides them. It could have nothing to do with them abusing their child, with the child being hurt in any way, physically, mentally, nothing. It could be some random response from like a dog barking constantly, and somehow that triggered and it caused flinching and stuff like that. Because we talked a couple weeks back about Dr. Gabor Mate and the fact that he flinched because bombs were being dropped outside of his house. He was never abused. We don't. They could have lived in a area with freaking shootings every day, and that's why there was flinching. So it doesn't. Yes, there is a trauma response, which is what the flinching is, but we don't know that that's from, oh, they had to be abused and all this stuff. And the fact that they're getting DCFS called on them, people, like a lot of people trying to get their kids taken away.
Cancel culture.
You
Because I
gotta,
think it's a thing. I think it's definitely a thing. And, people were going as far as to even like watch, like when her and her husband would eat on camera, and they're like, well, she's flicking the little boy's fingers out of the food, or the father's, but you don't know. Maybe that kid, I don't know. I'm not making any excuses, but you just don't know what happened prior.
the flicking thing. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, I get it. You don't need to flick your kid. That's kind of stupid. Um, but that's not really that big of a deal. Like, you don't want your kids grabbing out, your plate and stuff like that. I feel like that's a fair thing. I don't want my kids grabbing off my plate.
Now, a lot of people are calling her the Ruby Frankie 2.0. You and I have touched on the Ruby Frankie situation. She was that popular Mormon vlogger. Now,
Yeah.
there are some similarities because Nurse Hannah comes from a popular Mormon family as well. And her father is a surgeon, some sort of surgeon. So she grew up in like a wealthy household. And a lot of people are just trying to cancel culture for multiple different reasons. I mean, it could be everyone on here is trying, like, report her to DCF, this, that.
Well, and how many people have lost their jobs because somebody didn't like them and like reported their TikTok videos and called people's jobs, and people have had their kids taken away. Marriages have been ruined because of this app. And it's just like, you got to understand what you're doing to people. Like, everybody on here thinks they are the detective and they're going to be the hero that saves these kids or whatever. You don't actually know what's happening. You better be damn sure that you have all the evidence, because if those kids get taken away and she wasn't hurting them or he wasn't hurting them, then who knows what home they're going to go to, what foster care parent, whatever, and that person could actually abuse them.
Right. And I've had my fair share of very bad experiences when it comes to that with my own children.
Yeah.
And they think that they're doing such a justice by taking them away from the parent because the parent's struggling. But let me tell you something, those homes are not the best homes that those kids go into.
No.
And especially if family won't take the child. A lot of these foster homes are not where you want your child staying at night.
Listen, if you see something and you know for sure that, oh my gosh, this has to be happening, these parents are doing this, or they physically hurt their child in a live or something, that's a little different. But you still don't know everything. You don't know all the aspects of people's lives. You're only seeing a small little bit of something, and especially on a stream, it's hectic. There's a lot of other things going on. You don't know if that kid has been acting up all freaking day, and just all of a sudden the parent turned around going to talk to the kid, and their hand swung and smacked him in the face. They didn't even know the kid was there, but everyone would freak out. Oh my gosh, she's hitting her kid. There are so many different situations that can happen. So you have to actually understand what you're watching and take things kind of into context. Now, if you see someone just cocking back and bam every single day on live or wherever, that's probably a problem. Like, that makes sense. But that type of thing isn't what people are calling about. They're literally calling about the smallest things, trying to be a detective and then one person feeds off another person, and then all these creators get into something because she had dirty diapers on the floor. You could ruin her life, you could ruin her family's life, her husband, you could ruin the kids' lives, everybody.
People are also calling up because she's a nurse. They've called the nursing board on her and reported her to the nursing board, saying that she shouldn't be taking care of her patients.
Mm-hmm. Which, who knows? Maybe she is one of the more qualified people to take care of some of those patients. Maybe because she's not there one day, somebody unalives because she knew what to do, and the person that ended up being there instead didn't.
And
There's
with
so many
DCF,
things.
you can just never trust DCF. You can never
Yeah.
trust their intentions. You can't really judge someone by seeing a small portion of what they choose to put out on their platform as
Mhm.
content.
Yeah, and like I said, it's videos are very curated too. So I mean, some people will intentionally dirty up a place and make it look like everything is such hell when really the kids have been at grandma and grandpa's all day and just came back. You know what I mean? People fake stuff like that all the time.
And I personally know what it's like becoming part of the system. I fought the foster care and DCF for over 5 years to get my kids back. 5 years I had them involved in my life. And it was 5 years of living hell and torture for everyone involved.
People think it's all hunky dory and everything's okay. I mean, I've heard so many things. We've got our neighbors have six foster kids, and then they had another two actually, and they ended up going back to other homes that were not safe. Shan's been in that field for quite some time, and it's not a pretty place a lot of times. There are some great people out there, but there are a lot of really, really bad people too, and you never know. It's not a place to send kids unless they absolutely have to go there. There's no other choice.
Because a lot of these foster parents, unfortunately, it's about the check for them. And I've
1,000%.
had some really, really bad experiences when it came to foster parents at
Yep.
the time when I had them involved.
Yep.
Like, I speak English in my household, and my kids were both put in a Spanish speaking house. Do you know how confusing that was for them? They don't know, and they're already behind, and they're speaking only Spanish.
Yeah, what are you supposed to even do there? You can't
Right.
communicate with your parents? Like, wow.
And that made my kids more delayed for even more years because they already had delays, and then their early language was shifted to a whole nother language that we don't even speak, so it really caused issues for me.
Right. Well, and Crazy Redhead said, I'm a foster parent, but the kids are my husband's deceased sister's kids. Stuff like that is a little different. Whenever
Right.
and I will say the foster system 100% tries to place with family first. That is always a thing, 1,000% all the time. But I mean, it could be your sister and they deny the kids. Like they can say, "Oh, I
Right.
just I can't take them. I don't want to take them." And some people try and make it seem like they aren't fit when they really are, just so they don't have to take the responsibility.
That background check, they want you fingerprinted. The background check to be able to even have the kids to, my parents had to pass the background check in order to even supervise my visits between myself and my children at one point. They
Hmm.
both had to be fingerprinted. They both had to pass the criminal background check. And a lot of times, people's records don't even allow them to pass these background checks.
Yeah, thousand
Just
percent.
because your criminal background check doesn't pass, like, just because you have a criminal past doesn't mean that you're a bad person. I know
No.
me today. I know that I would never be able to take someone's kids, but am I qualified? Yeah, because I feel like today I would be able to handle a responsibility like that. But would they ever give it to me? No.
I've got couple of felons that are employed with our company. Uh, and I didn't have a problem hiring them. Of course, it depends a little bit about what happened. Like, depending, if there's mass unaliving or something like that, I don't really think that's a thing.
Like
But
my girl Lauren in here, she fought DCF for years. And like she said, her father, because he didn't have a driver's license, was denied.
yeah, yeah, it's
They are
all
so
types of stuff.
strict. And that's why I'm saying it's hard once you do lose that custody to get those kids back in your life or to change things, to change that narrative of that story.
Yeah, it's listen, people go through a lot of stuff. You never know, and that's kind of all we're trying to say here. Whether it's a video, whether it's real life, whatever, just everybody jumps to conclusions. The cancel culture, it's not really cancel culture anymore. It's kind of changed into something else, and it's just make sure you're holding yourself accountable too, because you
Right.
you don't know everything. I don't know everything. Marie doesn't know everything. Nobody in here does. And yet there's so many people that try and play detectives. It's okay if you want to throw out your opinion on something. If you're like, huh, that's kind of weird. It's always dirty in her house. I wonder why. Cool. Okay. Yeah, sure. Start a conversation, figure that shit out. Maybe talk to the person, message them. But you can't just be trying to get people's kids taken away, get them to lose their jobs. That's just gross. It's a disgusting thing, and it's giving strangers power over other people's lives when they really have no business to have that power. So yeah, it's freaking crazy. So the CEO of United Healthcare was unalived after like a investors meeting in New York on the 4th, 2 days before my birthday. Uh, he was unalived by a random guy that was cruising by, and from the looks of things and what a lot of people have kind of noticed, it looks like it was a professional hit. The the problem is if you don't know the controversies. So we were kind of looking up some of the stats before we got on here. This dude had basically AI. He was using AI programs to automatically approve or deny people for coverage in certain areas. One of the bigger areas was you could only go to the emergency room for like really really serious life threatening things. If it wasn't classified as a life threatening issue, you were not approved. So there were just a ton of people not getting approved for all types of things. There were people unaliving because they weren't getting approved for these things. So a lot of people hated this guy. A lot of people were against him, against the company, and he's CEO. So he was the one that was believed to be targeted. He was only CEO for 3 years. I mean,
Right. These problems with United Healthcare came way before, in my opinion. He was just the one that caught the shit end of the stick, probably for something that's been going on for years.
whenever you have a company, the CEO is not the only one that makes decisions. So the CEO is going to oversee things, but you can only see so much. That's kind of why you have to rely on other people to, have good people in your corner so that they're making the right decisions that kind of follow what you would like. They have a board of directors. Um, we don't know if he even made any decisions. He might have had the strongest voice, but it could have been 20 other people on that board that were outvoting him every single time, and that's why they implemented all these AI things, because maybe all they cared about was profit. But all that being said, he was attacked and unalived because of all of this.
Do you think that this is a good conversation for a lot of corporations to start having and looking into these things? Because you and I saw the statistics earlier that it was like an 8%. What was it?
It was 8% of claims were denied.
Right. which is a high percentage,
That's a
like you were
high
saying.
percentage. Yeah.
Now, do you think that a lot of these corporations and stuff that do these unethical business transactions and things like that are going to start to like really start to look better into the company so that these types of things don't happen in the near future?
No, I mean, who knows what really happened? Because he could have just pissed some dude off. He could have cut some dude off in traffic, and randomly this guy decided to come after him. You know what I mean? Uh, you're basically asking if people are going to forego making the money that they have always made it, like, just
Stop trying to cut corners.
people.
Stop trying to
Yeah.
cut corners.
Because they care about money, they care about profits, which it's a business. Businesses have to be profitable. If they aren't profitable and they don't do what it takes to maintain their cash flow, you're talking jobs lost. You're talking who knows, that company could completely go under and never be a thing anymore. Maybe that 8% was what was needed. Yes, to an 8% of denial and coverage for just random things. But you don't know if that 8% meant that 25 or 30% could actually get treatment for things. There are so many things, especially whenever it comes to insurance, that are mixed in with this. So the fact that this guy got so much blame that he was unalived, and then people are cheering on the person who unalived him, it's gross. There are better ways to handle things. It's this mentality that violence is the way. I mean, the president was, there were two attempts to unalive him. It's like,
Right.
what is happening? Like, everybody this thinks that the best way to handle things is by to take somebody out.
It just goes to show you where some people's mindsets can go.
Yeah.
That's a scary place, though, for someone's mindset to go to. But you have to also think about the anger and rage that probably comes along with all of this. People are losing family members, they're losing loved ones, they're not getting cancer treatments approved. Things that should be approved are not getting approved here.
He was saying, I wonder if the person who did it had a family member denied coverage. They likely did.
Right.
They probably had a family member who unalived because they couldn't get coverage for something. He didn't make that decision though. He didn't deny that person. I mean, somebody under him and following the rules that him and the board have creative. Yes, that's probably why it happened. But like, there's too many moving parts. Like, why go after him in that way? There's so many other ways that it could go. If that is that much of an issue, if they're not taking care of their people, that's why there's I can't remember what it is. There's like a health insurance bureau where if they aren't doing what they're supposed to, you can send them to
Like
lunch.
a quality control board.
Yeah, pretty much. There's one for like homeowners insurance and health insurance and everything. So if that's the case, if you have 100,000 people, which is a tiny, tiny percent of that 8%, most likely, if you have 100,000 people call and say, hey, this company isn't covering this, this, and this, and my loved one passed away because of it, there's probably going to be some change. Now, the other issue that people were having is how much were they hiding? How much were they in it just for themselves? And how much were they just in it for the money? Because not only did all this happen and everything was kind of going bad, but they were being sued, and in the process did not share that information publicly, and were selling off shares knowing that their stock was about to plummet, and it caused a whole thing that's basically insider trading because you're withholding the information. That was a big deal too, because they probably profited a lot while the company was going under and leaving other shareholders just screwed. I mean, other shareholders were probably losing a lot of money.
There's one particular healthcare insurance company that wants to start charging people like for anesthesia during surgeries. Like it's going to be cut off at a
I saw
certain
that.
point.
Hmm.
It's going to be cut off at a certain point, and if that patient wakes up to more time under anesthesia, it's their responsibility out of pocket.
Which I mean, hey, whenever you're going for health insurance, you have to read the fine print. You have to figure out what they cover. They are not going to cover everything. But this is another thing where I hope Trump kind of follows through with some of the things that he said he wanted to do and that he started before, because like he was doing the whole thing where he's making sure that hospital has to share cost, like the cost of this operation, so you know ahead of time and it's not like a random bill you get. So
Right.
if Trump follows through with that and it can hold the hospitals more accountable, it will also hold the insurance more accountable because people will be shopping around anyways. So it's, I mean, no one's going to say no, let me go ahead and wake up while you're inside my stomach or something just because my insurance won't cover it. But it is a rough thing to have to deal with for sure. Because, I mean, what do you do?
It's scary how insurance companies hold the power, though, in their hands because they're playing with life, death, and people's health.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and there's a another consideration to take: gingers, people with red hair. It's said that they don't respond as easily to anesthesia and
Anesthesia.
pain meds and stuff like that. So who knows? I mean, if you're a ginger, you could be really screwed by that because you need double the anesthesia potentially. It takes twice as long and twice as much to knock you out. So, I mean, there are a lot of factors that's a very scary thing because what else are they going to start not covering? But all this to say, if your insurance company is doing that, why not go to a different insurance? If it's because, hey, this is the insurance my workplace has, well, you can also get private insurance. It's probably going to be more expensive, but if that's what you need to do, then so be it.
Insurance and all that is such a headache for so many people,
Oh yeah.
myself included. I know they have like open enrollment once a year and you have to like re choose the health insurance company. But there are so many different things that you have to take into consideration, and you really need to know what goals
Hmm.
best align with your family's health needs.
Yeah, and that's anything. I mean, you should always shop around. No matter what you're doing, figure out like what best fits you. Don't just jump into things. Even if your job offers a certain insurance, see what it would take for different insurances.
But I do know, like, especially a lot of people that have like government plans or whatever, sometimes it's just mailed to them like this is your doctor. It's up to you to make those changes if that's not the doctor that you like, if it's not, you know, the treatments that you're interested in. Like you are your own best advocate. Remember
Yeah.
that no matter what. If you don't run your mouth, you're not going to get what you want in life.
Katie, I'm not saying everybody. Yes, you are. Whenever you go to a job, you get what you're offered. You're absolutely correct. There are other insurances out there. Not everybody can afford them. It's not going to work for everybody, but there are always other options. That's all I'm saying.
It's so much money when it comes to all these things. Money can make or break someone,
Mhm.
getting better care for themselves or their family or their loved one.
And I've fallen victim to this before too, but I've got on plans, insurance for cars, house, whatever, and I didn't shop around or read the fine print on every little thing. And, I've never had anything strongly affect me or anything like that, but it's still, we do a lot of we do a lot of complaining about things that we do have control over. I mean, it's not total control. It's not like you're always going to be in the best situation, but you have to put yourself in the situations that best benefit you. And it's not always going to work out. Some people are
Right.
going to have things change, and there's not really a lot of options that you have. It's it's hard. It's life.
Like I
It
can remember for me, my I have really good insurance. They paid for my dental implants to be placed. But
That's cool.
the reason why I chose that insurance is because it's like one of the only insurances that pays for dental implants, but the
Mhm.
rest of the coverage for other things isn't as good. So it's like once I you sometimes have to manipulate things like that. Use it for when you need it, and then switch it based
Yeah.
on your goals. You know?
Some things you're just gonna have to pay. You're gonna have
Right.
to figure it out, and it's hard. And like Katie said, it should be equal healthcare no matter if you're poor or if you're rich. It absolutely should. It should 1,000%. The problem is it's there are so many of these things designed for your tax bracket. Like, I mean, obviously, if you have more money, you're gonna get more things, and all anyone's ever going to say to you is, well, I guess you should go out and make more money. You know what I mean? I guess you should work harder. And they're going to fault you for that. There are some things that are out of our control. It's a kind of endless battle we'll always have. You can only circumnavigate things so much. You're always going to be affected by something in some way, and you just
Right.
have to figure it out. I've had to make this decision personally about what type of healthcare to offer employees. Uh, it's hard because you have to look at everybody and be like, okay, based on the average age range of all my people, how many people have kids, how much is it going to cost us, everything. There's so many factors. You have to look at all of this and decide which health insurance company is actually the best for us.
Right.
It's hard. I know. I mean, we had 9, 10, 11 probably people working on that, trying to figure out what the best possible option was, and I'm sure we still got it wrong
Right.
because there's so much to go through. It's hard, and then they make all these changes, and it's just like, well, now that they made a change, we can't switch health insurance companies for the next 2 years, and there's all types of stuff. It's tough. What else we got? Hawk Tuah, you want to talk about that real quick?
You can because I don't know anything about it.
So next up, Hawk Tuah girl. You all probably know who she is. She did a meme coin pump and dump. So what does that mean? That means she made a fake currency online, basically, and it's supposed to offer special privileges for like things in her shop. Sometimes they'll use them if you have a certain amount. You can do meet and greets, and there's all types of little benefits that you can get from a meme coin. So when she made the meme coin, she had a clause in her contract saying that she could not buy out personally for a year. So that makes it so people can't really just do a pump and dump, like promote something like crazy and really hype it up, get a whole bunch of people to spend money, and then you just buy out and you sell everything, and then the price of it crashes because so many shares were gone, if that makes sense. So she did this pump and dump. She circumnavigated some of that stuff because she had investors in there who took 17% of pre-sales. So before it actually went on to the public, she made sure that she had people buying 17% of that so that she had a nice share, and then it went out to the public. Go
How
ahead.
did she get caught though?
So it goes to the public. It
Right?
goes so everybody can buy it. All these people buy it, and then instantly the share cost went from like 60 million to like 8 million within 24 hours because that 17% along with others, whenever they started seeing the price all of a sudden just plummet whenever it just went that high, they all sold, and then people were sitting on it, and if you didn't catch it quick enough and you just invested, thousands and thousands of dollars for this meme coin so you could have an investment, those people kind of got screwed over.
And
So
this is why all those people that are in my inbox currently, hey, you want to invest, buy Bitcoin off of me. That's why, because I just don't trust anything on like anything like that. I'm sorry if I don't know you personally.
Bit Bitcoin is a little different. Bitcoin is very established, but that's expensive, and there's a lot to that. Um,
Right.
you just you have to understand. Everybody thought that, oh, it's the Hawk Tuah girl. She's a good old girl, and everything's gonna be okay. First off, what she did, if you don't know, that's a felony. That is also an example of insider trading. So she could go to jail for that. It just has to be proved that the people who were buying whenever all of the pre-sales and everything happened, it had to be proved that it was her team.
The last thing I want to do is come up with this like catchphrase, think I'm going to make all this money, and then self sabotage it all because of my own greed.
What I'm not sure of, because I kind of think this is what happened. I don't know the Hawk to a girl personally, obviously. She's a random person. From what I've seen, it seems like she's doing okay, where she has been fairly genuine with people. I think that Hawk Tuah started this legitimately and was trying to actually build something. And I think her pre-sales went to people that were trying to scam her, knowing she would
Ooh,
take the downfall.
ooh.
That is my opinion. Because if it's her friends and her financial advisors or other influencers that she has met that probably helped her put all this together so they could scam her, those are probably the people that did those pre-sale investments. And then without her knowing, they probably went ahead and pulled out right once it peaked. And then it looks like she actually did it so that she could make some money.
That's why it is so important, like we were talking about earlier. Always read contracts over, always get an attorney to read contracts over, because the last thing you want to do is come up with this cool catchphrase, become internet famous,
Mhm.
could have the potential to become a self made millionaire and throw it all out the door.
That's why people have to be very careful about who they actually make famous, because you see all these people that are just instantly getting famous, how screwed over they get so fast, because everybody knows a normal person cannot navigate a lot of this probably for that first year or two. You have to have help that you can actually trust. But so
Right.
many of these influencers and people that are out there, they're just trying to make money, and you're an easy pick. You know nothing about any of this. You're teaching them everything. So if you need to take a little sum on the side somehow, you can find a way. And that's the sad part. I think she got taken advantage of. I have some ideas as to who I think did it. Um, but I'm not going to put that out here.
That just goes to show you that, like, there are people that would love to see someone else go down, like cancel culture, like just like what we were talking about, right? You see somebody making a come up in this world, and it's like anything to make them go backwards or down.
The other sad part is, like, if it's true and she didn't actually know this was going to happen and she was used and people took advantage of her, she could go to jail. She could lose everything that she just got, and she's been working hard since she got that. Ever since she became famous, everybody wanted to talk shit about her because her saying was stupid. She was out living her life, and this happened without her like wanting it to, and she took advantage of that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's
Right.
pretty smart. If you get the opportunity, jump on it. So it sucks that she could lose everything. Her charity that she started, that's, for animals and all types of stuff.
Oh,
Um, it's just sad because it's like people are jumping on her and are going to sue her and all types of stuff because they invested and everything happened so fast. And it's just like, first off, if you were stupid enough to invest in a meme coin from someone who's been famous for all of 10 minutes and you don't really know them, that's kind of dumb. Before you should buy into things like that, you should always do your research. First off, figure out who those other investors that are going to be in there are, because you can find that information. Figure out like if it's a company, figure out their motives. Figure out who the hell all these people are involved. And if it seems like it's legit, there's some awesome meme coins that have actually made people quite a bit of money.
I look at it like this. Anytime that you're associating your name with anything, you have to make sure that like you would put your signature on it. And it has to
Yeah.
be what, like, I don't want my name associated with something that I don't want my name associated with, you know? Like, that is something that people don't take or shouldn't take lightly, you know? So
Well,
always research is everything.
well, and it's like you and I have had a few random sponsor things come up and stuff like that. It,
Which I've gotten screwed on a few. I've gotten screwed on a few sponsored posts.
and there are a lot of things that we haven't really used because it's like we don't trust it.
Ken, speaking of the homeless guy from the hurricane, Lieutenant Dan,
He's in
I don't know if
jail.
you saw, I wanted to tell you that. That was
Yeah,
the other part of today that I wanted to discuss.
yeah.
So I guess Lieutenant Dan, somebody with some of the GoFundMe money, purchased him a van
Hmm.
and he took the seats out of it because they impounded his boat.
Hmm.
And I guess he's in jail for driving. He was live streaming
Hmm.
and he drove up to North Carolina to go get his, because remember he didn't have a driver's license, and he made that very vocal about
Yep.
it. Well, he thought he could live stream because he's famous, and
He had his 15 minutes of fame. That's the reason why like these people are getting suddenly famous and you see everything is going wrong with a lot of them. It's navigating this world is not for normal people. I feel like I know a decent amount about it and I would probably get destroyed.
I think greed.
Like,
I think greed is like one of the biggest things that comes into play when people are making it big. They
yeah.
just, yeah, fame is trouble. Like, you don't realize that that 5 minutes of fame can make or break you. You can make something big of it, or you could completely screw yourself over and self sabotage yourself.
And everybody hits that like wall of, oh, I'm not growing anymore. What is the next thing I need to do? And that's usually where people end up in trouble because that's when they take those random deals that they wouldn't normally take, and it ends up being a scam or falling through, and it's just all types of shit.
It happens to the best of us where we've gotten screwed. I know I've gotten screwed on some sponsored
Yeah,
shit on here.
yeah, that's why you want to make sure you have a good lawyer. A couple of good lawyers, honestly. I mean, I know it's expensive, but if that is the first thing you put your money on is some good lawyers, you that's money well spent, baby. Because yeah, I've got some halfway decent lawyers, and they have helped keep me from getting screwed multiple times, like big time.
Right. Always have everything looked over business wise.
Hmm. The last thing we're going to talk about, the TikTok ban. So supposedly TikTok will be no more on January 19th. Uh, that's probably not a thing. So likely TikTok will still be here. I don't see it going anywhere. It's all because they won't sell or they won't separate from Byte something. I can't remember, but they won't separate from them.
I personally feel like it's going to take time because if they're
Yeah.
saying January 19th, it's still got to be brought in front of court again. So I would say we won't probably even be hearing anything more until like March, probably like around that time, even later,
Yeah.
because it's going to have to go. And by that time, I guarantee you it will be bought.
If not bought, I think they'll just fight it for so long. I just I don't understand what the government is actually trying to accomplish because it's already been out so long. Like all our information and everything that they're trying to prevent from like getting leaked because of TikTok, it's already out there. So what's at this point, I mean, the only thing that we would be stopping is the push of nonsense that gets put on TikTok. Because you notice how the stupidest stuff is what TikTok pushes. That there's a reason for that. If you look at other countries and stuff, it's not quite like that. But yeah, I don't know. Thank you all. We love you guys. We will see you next time.